Evening, sister.
Hello, everybody.
Oh,
Good to see you, everybody.
good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Before she puked, she decided like she's on my bed.
Hey all, we're going to be starting in a couple minutes. We're going to ask you to mute yourself unless you.
Did she puke on your bed? No.
Hi, everybody. We're going to start in a couple minutes. We'd ask people to mute themselves, particularly if you have some background noise. Otherwise, we'll be doing an automatic mute to everyone. And I know we're going to have a lot of people on the line tonight. We've got we have the candidates for the CLC convention. They're going to be appearing with us tonight. And then there's a small thing called nomination for president. And in between, we've got a lot of really good business to do. So again, we'd ask people to mute themselves if you're not speaking, or otherwise we'll have to do an automatic mute. For those of you who were part of celebrating May Day on May 1st, of course, it's the International Workers' Holiday. And at the end of this program, we're going to celebrate some of the solidarity that our movement has done many, many years with the South African labor movement and the anti-apartheid movement in song. So in a moment, we're going to ask Jen to read the harassment statement. And we'll just give it another minute or so. Hopefully everybody was able to get your proper link through the list. And I'll just note that it's a delegates meeting and we'll only be recognizing delegates for speaking on the different papers, other than our guests that are here tonight. So Jen, you want to read the harassment statement, please?
Mutual respect, cooperation, and understanding are strongly held principles of the trade union movement. We will neither condone nor tolerate harassing or discriminatory behavior that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment and undermines the dignity or self-esteem of any individual. An injury to one is an injury to all. Speech or conduct which is racist, sexist, homophobic, or discriminatory in any way is unacceptable to trade unionists and only serves to divide us. Our policies and practices must reflect this commitment to equality as we work together for justice and dignity in our workplaces, our unions, and our communities.
Thank you. As we know, we're meeting here on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit, and that was subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I'm going to ask Susan to just walk people through the protocol around Zoom. Susan?
Thanks. Yeah, you're all pretty old hands, I think, at Zoom these days, but we'll just run through the basic rules. We do ask you to keep yourself muted, to keep background noise at a minimum, unless you are asked to unmute yourself to speak. Please feel free to use the chat function to, share thoughts among yourselves and say hello to other people and bring greetings. When we're taking statements or if there's a point that you need to make, what we ask you to do is to raise your hand, not in the little one that goes up on your screen for 30 seconds, but either by opening up the participant list, putting the cursor over to the right by your name, or down below, you'll see a little blue raise hand function. Or sometimes in the reactions in some people's Zoom, there's the little raise hand and it will say raise hand. So if you're trying to get on the speakers list, please use that function that says raise hand. We're not able to scroll across the 6 or 7 pages or so of you to keep track of that. And if you want to raise your hand, if you're on the phone, if you push *9, that will do the same thing. And to mute or unmute yourself on the phone, you can push *6. Thanks, that's it.
Great, thank you. If there are any full-time, first-time delegates that are here, please raise your hand one way or another, and we'll just try and recognize you. See Richard Ryszkowski, Kelly Belbin, any other first-time delegates? Eric B. from 3902. Oh my goodness. Angela Mastronardi from IATSE 873. Nina Brown, Darla Rodriguez, Jasmine Muchkanovich, and I'm going to start running out of names. Marilyn Terry, Zalima Young, Sean Bush, Dini Safi, QP 905, Rod Sudik 905, Tanya LaRouche. And in the next meeting, we'll actually invite you to introduce yourself from your union, but because we have such a packed agenda tonight, and I know we've got a lot of new delegate credentials because we have been asking your locals to send them. We're not going to make that time tonight. Just make sure I talk to everybody. So welcome all. The minutes and all the material was sent out to you by email with links to the statements and the minutes. They have been sent out, so we've deem them to be moved and seconded for adoption. If there are any errors or omissions, please raise your hand. Now, Tanya, you got your hand up. Tanya LaRouche, I don't know if it's just from before. No. Okay, seeing nobody on errors or omissions, all those in favor of adopting the minutes, there'll be a poll that comes out to vote. And please vote on that. And maybe in the chat room, people who I skip through, quickly with your introductions, if you can just put your name in and your union, and that allows everybody else to see who's joining us tonight. It'd be great. While we're waiting for that vote, we're gonna move to the credential report. Doug Jones, are you doing the credential or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I move Thursday, May 6th, Toronto York Region Labor Council's credential report. COPE Local 343, 3 delegates. QP Local 79, 19 delegates. QP Local 905, 20 delegates. QP Local 2484, 2 delegates. QP Local 4991, 1 delegate. QP Local 4948, 8 delegates. CUP W Toronto, 3 delegates. Elementary teachers, 34 delegates. ETFO York Region, 13 delegates. IATSE Local 873, 9 delegates. ONA Local 80, 3 delegates. UPSU Local 553, 2 delegates. Sheet Metal Local 30, 9 delegates. UFCW Local 1006A, 7 delegates. United Steelworkers Local 1998, 5 delegates. Unite Local 75, 15 delegates. I so move.
Okay, that's moved and seconded. We'll put that to the vote. That'll come up in a moment. So please vote on accepting those credentials. We're sure they're all honest people that are going to be here helping to power this labor movement in the next number of years. So we can have the vote up, please. Okay, no, here we are, yeah. Now, in a moment, we're going to have a strike report from the brewery workers 325 and also from steelworkers. Before we do that, though, we've been informed by at least one of our affiliates of one of their members who have passed from COVID, and probably there's others that we haven't heard of. And every meeting in this last number of months, we've taken a moment's silence to remember those who've been stricken by this terrible pandemic. So if you could join me in a moment of silence in remembering those who've lost their lives since we've last met. Thank you. Last meeting, we were our sisters and brothers at the Molson's brewery in Etobicoke were still locked out. They weren't able to join us because they were in bargaining, trying to get an agreement. And I'm going to invite Brother Gorav and Julio from Brewery Workers 325 to give us a quick update of where they're at. And I'm sure they want to thank some people as well. Gorav?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank you, John, Susan, and the entire delegate from Toronto and New York Labor Council actually supporting us throughout our 6 weeks. So we were locked out. I want to thank for the groups who were supporting with the full force without any hesitation, and it actually get through our difficult time in the 6 month, not only dealing with the lockout, hard bargaining, but also this pandemic as well, being as an essential worker. So I would say that April the 3rd, we got the ratification for 4 years of contract. We got the valuable language we were looking in our contract. We made the progress in our wages and the continental work schedule, and try to reconcile our pension. And so it's actually, we've got a much better language and the compensation part, either it's pension, wages, and other benefits. After we fought with the company when they forced our vote. So it took some time, but I think at the end, we're trying to bring our members to close their gaps on their wages. It was a huge gap to compile from 40% gap, but I think we were it managed to get from 65% to 87%. Unfortunately, we couldn't close the gap, but we couldn't close the gap 100%. But actually, what we try to do is to close the gap as much as we can to bring our membership on a better position compared to the original position company offered us. So, and the Continental was the huge sticking point for us as well. Because they were company was offering the schedules without the premium. So we managed to get the premium overtime if any members are working more than 40-hour work week under the Continental schedule. And also would like to also mention that with this negotiation, we are also achieve another $60 million of investment to this Toronto brewery where we were lacking across the supply chain in Canada. So in overall, with the difficult time, I think we come out strong, and that could not be done without the support from the labor movement, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Julio, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to thank everyone again for all the letters we received, the emails, people that came out to the picket line. We really appreciated it. It did pick up the spirits of some members. We know that some members were not happy about this deal, but the more they look into it and the more they realize that it's actually a very good deal. As Gaurav mentioned, we wanted wage parity. Unfortunately, that was not in the cards. We did manage to get the gap a little closer, and we're going to keep moving in that direction to close it off once and for all. but it's not an easy task, that was for sure. But I want to thank everybody again for their support.
Great, and thank you, brothers, for coming and reporting that. You're taking on a huge global multinational company. Their HR policies are set far away from North Etobicoke, but you've been on the streets this time and the contract before fighting the good fight. So thanks very much for doing that, and we'll continue to see you at our delegates meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Early Monday morning, a number of us were out on a picket line with steelworkers out not far from the Molson's Brewery, actually over near Weston and Finch. And we're going to show a video about workers at Rex Blast, and then we're going to have, I think, a live feed from the picket line.
This is a company that manufactures plastic bottles, 12-hour shifts. It's hard.
We roughly have 35 employees, and 31 of them are women, many from the Indian community.
I'm been here 32 years, but I'm making, $14 for 25 cents per hour.
They worked through the pandemic.
We hard worker. In the COVID, we every day come to work. We never ever miss a day. We take a risk for the family.
And then when it came to collective bargaining, the company had nothing. What they've done for this employer and have them have to go to the picket line to get a raise.
They didn't give nothing else, right? We cannot afford everything too expensive, right?
How is it they're driving the fancy cars and they're telling ordinary people you can only get 1% or zero?
And we will support you until the last day when you actually win. One day longer, one day stronger. One day longer, one day stronger.
And I think we have Carlos from the unit chair. Is he connecting in now?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
I unmuted myself right now, John.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Carlos.
Okay, well, what I want to tell everybody is that we went on a strike on April 26. This is the second week. The company still refused to meet with us. Today we lost injunction, right?
We have an injunction today.
Yeah, we have an injunction today, and so I mean we're going to start having trucks coming in tomorrow, maybe overnight, and we don't know if they're going to bring any scabs, but we're trying to do our best to try to negotiate something. A lot of the women here, they were really, really hard, and they don't make too much money, only just about over the minimum wage. While management, for the last 5 years, their income has grown over 33.5% every year in the last 5 years. Last year, they had a 28 million net profit, okay? And they even refused to help our workers here during the pandemic. The companies that were given incentives, this company refused. We don't know what to do. I mean, all these guys are rich. Their companies listed in the stock exchange. All these guys, they drive their big Bentley cars, Aston Martins, Maseratis, Ferraris. While the rest of us, some of the girls, they come by bus, they got to fight every day through the pandemic. And the lucky ones that we have cars, well, we got to do the same. I don't know if we're going to have any settlement coming in the next week or so. We haven't heard nothing. Tom haven't heard nothing from the union. But, I just want to tell everybody, to keep supporting us. We really appreciate all the help that the people are sending to us. And let's be strong, okay? We're very strong, tough people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Muchas gracias, Tom. You've got some of the picketers there. Great. Okay.
Yeah, we have some of the picketers here as well that are here that just came into the trailer. I've been working off here, making the trailer here an office to keep doing some of the work. But I just want to tell everyone that the employer provided this local 8300 that work here at Rex Plus a final offer on April the 21st. We had a strike deadline of April the 26th. Took the offer back to the membership on April the 23rd, and it was unanimously rejected by 90%. The employer has 0% first year on the table with no retroactivity, 1%, 1%, and 1%. I mean, the employees here, other than forklift drivers or QC or maintenance, do make somewhat a bit of a higher wage, but 90% of the employees here, the women, are just above the minimum wage. We're looking for a fair deal. Richards Packaging is a huge corporation that supplies bottles to many different industries. They are a profitable employer that provides their shareholders with dividends quarterly. And at this point in time, during this pandemic, they've increased their production and sales by 28%. And their profitability is, right through the roof. We have sent letters to their customers advising them to put some pressure on to, get them back to the bargaining table. At this point, with no success. We do have a rally that I'm sure Carolyn will mention at the Richards Packaging corporate office on Monday, May the 10th at 8 a.m. This will be at their corporate office where their general manager and CEO are located. And we hope to catch them coming in as they, during this time and have a huge demonstration. I've reached out to Peel Halton area council as well. I reached out to Cheryl Craig, which is the Peel Regional Labor Council, along with the Mississauga from the office. I used to work out of Mississauga. I'm now in Toronto, but asked them for support as well, our other offices. And I'm asking if anybody here with their locals would like to come out and support the rally on May the 10th. We're greatly appreciated. Trying to send as much news as possible out to all the locals and unions out that can support us, put some pressure on this employer to get back to the bargaining table and try to get a fair deal. I mean, it's tough to win any strike.
Yeah,
it's tough to win any strike on the picket line. It's tough to win any strike on the picket line. We got to, be resourceful and do corporate campaigns and so forth. And we're doing the best we can. And we've got some support.
We'll definitely get the word out for a rally on Monday, and a corporate campaign is really also going to be crucially important on that. So we'll be letting our heads of unions know, and just want to thank you all, and a message to the folks on the picket line that the whole labor movement is behind you, and I hope one day longer and you'll be one day stronger. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
Thanks for having us, John.
Bye.
Take care.
Solidarity.
Bye-bye.
So we hear those kinds of fights. And that's the 2021 and beyond. Corporate Canada is taking advantage of COVID, and they're going to do whatever they can to grind more profits out of hardworking people. So we're going back to the main program now. And as people know, we do have a CLC convention coming up in June, Canadian Labour Congress. There's 2 slates of candidates that are putting their names forward for different offices. And we're going to assign each of those slates 10 minutes to do a presentation to our delegates tonight. We're going to start with the slate with Julius Arscott running for president. And Julius, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and you have 10 minutes between yourself and your slate.
Great, thank you, John. So my name is Julius Arscott. I'm an executive board member of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union and vice president of Option Local 532, representing workers in the Ontario Public Service, including the Ministry of Environment, where I work. I've been a delegate to the Toronto and York Region Labour Council for 12 years. I sit on the steering committee of the NDP Socialist Caucus and the Workers' Action Movement. And I'm running for president of the Canadian Labour Congress as part of the Labour Forward campaign. Working people are on the front lines fighting COVID-19 with inadequate support from our employers and the labor movement. The vaccination delays, the lack of personal protective equipment and paid sick leave, the overall priority of profits over human needs, with the spotlight on the most precarious and vulnerable workers keeping the economy moving, have all shown the need for a dramatic change in labor union priorities and leadership. We see how difficult it is to live with a high cost of living, while many in our union leadership continue to sell us on settling for less. Doug Ford's horror show must be stopped by action, not by polite criticisms. Ford is not afraid of letters to the editor. He's afraid of a well-organized, militant, mass working class action. There's no denying the popularity of 10 paid sick days for all workers, including within some circles of the Conservative Party. Yet Doug Ford's government refuses to implement them. And we have to ask ourselves, well, why is that? The answer is because he knows that the demands of the labor-based NDP and the labor movement will not be backed up with action. Let's prove him wrong. The CLC should organize mass walkouts, mass action to demand 10 permanent paid sick days. Let's demand a 20-hour minimum wage. Workers want a union movement which is engaged in the class struggle, a movement which does not shy away from defending the interests of our class around the world, a movement which will take a leading role in fighting the pandemic and eco-catastrophe head on. Change does not happen automatically like a gift from the boss. It comes through working class struggle. It always has. We must stop relying on arbitrators, the boss's legal system, and parliamentary cretinism, which has gotten us exactly where we are today. We must build a mass movement to beat the boss's austerity agenda. I'm running for president of the CLC at convention, along with our slate of candidates to challenge the status quo. We're looking for allies to work together to build the kind of movement we need to make the changes we need. Let's put movement back into the labor movement. Endorsements and financial donations are most welcome. Check out our website at www.laborforward.ca. And I'm going to pass it over to Sandra. Sandra, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Sandra.
Good evening. Marcus Garvey, a great trade unionist, once stated that without confidence, you're twice defeated. But with confidence, you've won even before you started. Today, I stand here before you. I can assure you that the waning confidence we have collectively witnessed since the last CLC election must come to an end. If we are to move forward as a united union that truly puts the need of all its members first. And my years of proactive union activism has prepared me to be the leader we need to transform our organization and push through all obstacles placed before us. My name is Sandra Griffith Bonaparte, the president of UND Local 70607, one of the largest UND locals, and I'm part of the Labor Forward team. As a prospective executive vice president on the CLC leadership team, I will fight relentlessly to protect our workers' rights and strongly advocate for eradicating inequities that our members are experiencing in the workplace. I can assure you that when elected, we will make it a top priority to strengthen our union and unconditionally support all members while ensuring accountability and transparency within our organization. In addition to being known for my tenaciousness, compassionate, and effective leadership, and my years of proactive union activism, as your prospective executive vice president on the CLC leadership team, I will relentlessly fight to protect our workers' rights. I will, with a team, strongly advocate for the eradication of inequities that our members have experienced in our workplaces. And we will be the voices of a union, brothers and sisters, that will not stop talking until heard, as we spearhead proactive initiatives and actions that will inclusively support all members that will assist us with making further gains. The Labor Forward leadership team together can co-create equitable and inclusive spaces governed by an accountable and transparent executive team who value members' voices, address members' concern, and wholeheartedly supports your well-being as union members. So, as we extend our hands to you as pro-union activists, standing in solidarity with you, we look forward to initiating a grassroots organic process of change that will focus on engaging and supporting our valued membership, because serving our members means putting you first. With that being said, dear members, it is time for a change. And so I want to end by saying, we will not be defeated, but rather we'll be victorious as we stand in solidarity. For the union makes us strong. Finally, I faced discrimination and bigotry in my union. I was lied on and condemned, and then suspended for 9+ months. My spirit was daunted because I couldn't believe that a union organization that professed to be freedom fighters and justice seekers would turn a blind eye to discrimination and bigotry. But I survived, and here I am with Labor for a team, ready and willing to stand with our members. Our slate, under the umbrella of the Workers' Action Movement, strive for change based on policies, not on personalities, to replace misleaders on political grounds, to affirm union democratic principles from the bottom up, and to build an independent class struggle movement from below that is inclusive, transparent, and accountable. That means change the overall direction of a union and support for union activists who batter concessions and anti-democratic principles. Thank you, and I yield.
Hello, my name is Jenny Asnar, and I am running for the position of First Vice President at the Canadian Labour Congress. I am an advocate and an activist for human rights and the labor movement. I currently sit on the board of directors for the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, as well as chair of the Human Rights and Diversity Committee. I spent considerable time in the political arena in my younger days. My motivation is the labor movement and how we can improve. We need to shake things up, people. We need to shake up the establishment. And I am here to advocate for those who lost their voice and for those who want and need representation. I am here to right the wrongs, and it's time to take action. I hold those in positions of power accountable. That's right. However, we, as one, must unite and mobilize. The Workers' Action Movement, WAM, strives to forge democratic union leadership to make a better world for the working class and humanity. WAM honors workers of color who fight systemic racism daily. Why hasn't the CLC heed the call of the multiracial North American working class that is crystallized in slogans? Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate. WAM stands for no concessions bargaining, for greater union democracy, and for mass job action to fight austerity. We want labor to lead struggles against systemic racism, for eco-socialism, and the need to defund the police. No more backhanded support for the Liberal Party. It's over. Let's commit to the labor-based NDP and fight within it for a workers' agenda. I, Jenny Asnard, vow to elevate our members and fight for equality.
My name is Sandra Griffith-Ball.
Oh, great. That's just perfect timing, you guys. You're just under 10 minutes. So now we're going to move to the other team that's offering for leadership of the Canadian Labour Congress, Bea Brusky. And I'll ask you to introduce your team.
Thank you so much. I really very much appreciate the opportunity to participate in the meeting. I'm Bea Brusky. I'm a UFCW member from Manitoba, and I'm joining you from Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, Dakota people, and of course, homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'm fortunate to be running for the position of president of the CLC along with Team Unite. And of course, along with me are Lily Chang from QP79, I think is known very well to most of you. And of course, Siobhan Vipont with IATSE, and she's currently the Secretary Treasurer of the Alberta Federation of Labour. And we believe that the labour movement in Canada is in crisis, that we need to rebuild and strengthen our movement. And our team is working really hard to bring that change to the CLC. We've been engaging with workers, affiliates, federations of labour, and labour councils from coast to coast over the last number of months. And we want to understand the priorities and the issues. And the core issues that we keep hearing about remain the same for everyone. Doesn't matter which union, doesn't matter which province. And that is that we need a change in leadership. We need to be responsive to the real issues that unions and their members are dealing with every single day. that we need to be accessible and consistently reach out to engage unions, federations, and councils to work together, to find a way to lift each other up, to work together and move one another forward in a cohesive fashion. Secondly, we keep hearing that the CLC needs to respond very quickly and decisively to raiding in the labor movement, to enforce Article 4 of the CLC Constitution. And as part of that, we also know that we are stronger together, and that means finding ways to grow the CLC, for the non-affiliated unions to come to the House of Labor and to bring back those who have left the House of Labor. And that means showing value to belonging. And finally, what workers and their unions tell us that they want to see in the CLC is new and relevant campaigns that educate and engage Canadians on the beneficial roles that unions play. And we need to be talking about the really important work that unions are doing to achieve progressive worker-centered legislation in Canada, because that's what it comes down to, my friends, is worker-centered legislation. And we also need to work on a worker-led just transition to address climate change issues and challenges that we are all facing. And we need to encourage workers to join unions, to build union density, or to become active within their union if they already are unionized. So many unions, we struggle with getting our members engaged and active, and we need to make sure that workers understand the value of being active participants in their existing union. Our Team Unite platform speaks directly to these issues. We want to build solidarity, worker engagement, and political action. And as a team, we've gained the endorsement of our own affiliates and of many others, and we are humbled by that support. Running for president, I bring a wealth of on-the-ground real-life experience and decision-making to this role. My activism started at the age of 18 when I spent 125 days on a long picket line, standing up to Loblaw and taking on that big corporation for my brothers and sisters, with my brothers and sisters. And standing up for workers' rights and giving voice to workers' issues comes very naturally to me because I live it, because I believe it. I became a very active shop steward and was voted onto my executive board as a 20-year-old. Studied labor studies at the University of Manitoba, and I've spent the last 27 years working full-time in the labor movement. And in that time, I've been a servicing rep, going into workplaces, meeting with workers, understanding the issues within the workplace. I've spent time as a full-time negotiator in a variety of industries, and have sometimes had to make that hard decision to say to a group of workers, we need to hit the bricks and walk a picket line to push for what's right. I bring public and private sector experience. I've sat on my national executive board with UFCW. I've had an opportunity to sit on the Manitoba Federation of Labor as an exec, and on the Manitoba Labor Board as an employee rep, seeing non-unionized employees fight their fight and get all the way to a hearing in front of the Labor Board for a determination. And I'm a strong supporter of the provincial NDP and of the federal NDP. I've worked very closely on the NDP exec in Manitoba, and I've run as a candidate in the last election. My strengths are collaboration, finding common ground and making space for all voices, and prioritizing issues to achieve our collective goals. So I invite you to join us as we work really hard to reinvigorate the CLC, and as we fight for the kind of Canada that we all want to live in. And I'm going to switch it now over to Lily and ask her to introduce herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Bea, and hello, sisters, brothers, friends. So you know me as Lily Chang, Executive Officer for CUPE Local 79, representing 22,000 workers for the City of Toronto, Bridgepoint Health and Toronto Community Housing. And of course, I'm a delegate to this Labour Council and on the Executive Board. So today I want to share with you the journey that brought me here and why I'm running for CLC Secretary Treasurer. After university, I took a job at Seneca College. I was an OPSU 561 member then, but wasn't really connected with my union. And that all changed when I applied for a new job and was denied the promotion. I grew up believing that life was pretty fair. You know, you work hard, you'll be rewarded. It was like that throughout school for me, but I was learning that in the working world, this wasn't always the case. I remember asking the Dean of Liberal Studies for some constructive criticism, and he said, "What do you want, a page of insults?" He also told me to take it to the union and see what they do about it. So I took it to the union, and that's where I learned about grievances and the important role that the union plays in defending and advancing workers' rights. And I found that my pursuit of fairness and union involvement went hand in hand, so I signed up to be a steward. In 1989, I got hired as a caseworker for Metro Toronto and became a CUPE member. When I arrived at the city, I found the members in social services organizing to vote no. What were they unhappy about? Well, they were being paid $10,000 less than provincial social assistance workers. My female-dominated bargaining unit believed we were being neglected by the union leadership. Now, I may not have understood all the issues, but I knew we needed to amplify our voices. I signed up to be a steward and organized a meeting of the social services membership. Well, we made some noise and got a lot of attention. The employer responded with the Labor Management Committee. And Local 79 set up a social services committee, giving us a voice in the decision-making process. And I can proudly say that these structures remain in place today. In 2005, I was elected to treasurer, and I served for 13 years in that role. And during this time, I got our financial house in order and oversaw some major projects. For example, I led the acquisition of new office space when we outgrew our business condo in Adelaide. Positioning ourselves as a holdout floor, we sold our space for double the amount per square foot, allowing us to purchase an office building in downtown Toronto. I coordinated our Taking Care of Toronto campaign following a 6-week strike in 2009. That campaign was a hit with both our members and the public. My years on the board of Labour Council has given me the opportunity to focus on bigger picture political issues such as climate change and systemic racism. And I especially appreciate my time on the municipal committee, working with activists and leaders across sectors to elect the right people at City Hall and protect important public services. My financial experience combined with my wish to play a role in our broader labor movement is the reason why I am running to be your next CLC Secretary Treasurer. So I'm running on a team with two amazing women, Bea and Siobhan, and I can't wait for the day when we will be working together on our shared vision to unite and build solidarity in the House of Labour and to build a movement for a stronger working class. I'll turn it to Siobhan now to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for making time on your schedule for us today. I'm joining you from Amiskwatewa-Kaiken, which is Edmonton, here in Treaty 6 territory. I am a settler who has absolutely been privileged with a beneficiary from our peace and friendship treaties. And I recognize the role we need to all play in order to get truth and reconciliation in our country. I am with IATSE, and I know there's some IATSE delegates here, so I'm sure you know what kind of union we are. I am also currently the Secretary Treasurer at the Alberta Federation of Labour. I came to my activism quite early. I come from a union family. It was known very early age that you want to grow up and get a good job. And a good job meant a union job, because a union job was a job that meant that the boss could only have so much control over you. It meant that you had health and safety standards. It meant you got a decent wage. It meant you didn't have to have multiple jobs. And it also meant that you got a retirement because you would have a pension. And so that was just my regular life. It also meant from an early age, we were on picket lines. And I remember the first picket line I was on, and as an 8-year-old, super exciting because it's signs, it's singing, and it's being together. It's a hot chocolate because I'm from Alberta and it was cold. But what I didn't understand was maybe the intricacies of why we were there. But what I did understand was what was important about being there, which was we were coming together, we were the union, and somebody who was being mean and unfair needed to be taken to task by the people that were there. That type of fairness and needing to step up and take action has influenced my entire life. Also, the idea that we don't accept what people are saying in power if it is not fair to others. So this journey led me to my role as my job as a stage and film technician, and then to this full-time position that I have with the Alberta Federation of Labour. I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do here that has related to politics, and as Bea mentioned, that is the politics that has to do with making sure that the people in power are kept to task. It also has to do to make sure that when workers go to the ballot box, there has to be an option that is worker friendly, who is standing on our side. And right now, that means we have to work with the NDP, make sure they don't forget their worker roots, but also that means that our workers and our members also have to be aware of what the options are. We've also talked about community building, which needs to be broader. This is about unions, and this is about other organizations that are doing that work to raise the floor for everybody.
Siobhan, you got about 10 seconds left.
Yeah, and we were all going to do that together. And what together looks like is that we have to do that in the House of Labour. And there is room for everybody in this House of Labour, but that takes action. And so we need to make that room, we need to make that space. So there's power in our collective action, and we need to take it. And that's why I'm running for Vice President with Lily and Bea for the Canadian Labour Congress. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all, and thank you everybody for putting your names forward. It's not easy to accept the responsibility of leading our movement. We are an amazing movement in this country, and hopefully this will help the delegates to our convention decide on the leadership they want for the next 3 years. So thank you very much. This is May, and we're on Asian Heritage Month. We've got a bit of a presentation to make for you, and I'll ask Gobi to introduce the presentation.
Great.
gorgeous.
Gobi, have you got you all right for?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. So good evening, everyone. And as John had mentioned, May is Asian Heritage Month. So let's take a moment to acknowledge the contribution of Asian leaders in our movement and reflect on how we can together fight anti-Asian racism. So as part of Yes, It Matters, addressing systemic racism campaign, and in recognition and celebration of the contribution that people of Asian heritage have made to Canada, Labor Community Service and Equity Committee would like to highlight the local leader profiles. And again, a special shout out goes to Sharon Simpson from LCS for putting together this presentation. All right, so first person is Kingsley Kwok from OPSU. Kingsley Kwok is the president of OPSU Local 575, representing over 900 hospital allied health professionals. Frank Saptel from IMA. Frank Saptel is the founder of Canadian Labour International Film Festival, which is known as CLIF. And we have Ruth Laura Malloy. Ruth Laura Malloy worked with Toronto's Joint Labour Community on human rights to fight racism back in the 1950s. Sumu Sati. Sumu Sati is the first person of color to be elected in for the chair of York Region's unit, QP 905. Jojo Geronimo, has worked with unions in the Canada and US as an education officer with the Ontario Public Service Employee Union and as an education director with SEIU. Oh, this guy.
Who's that?
Gobi Shankar Suryakumar, which is me, the first South Asian and the youngest person to hold the role of vice president for QP 4948, which is the Toronto Library Workers. Winnie Ng is a labor activist and a scholar. Goji Bandal is a longtime union activist and the Canadian Labour Congress regional representative. And with Asian Heritage Month this month, Chinese Workers Network has a contest going on, and they're willing to accept a video of 30 seconds to 1 minute or a picture with a minimum of 25 words that explains one of the following questions. So they have different social media platforms out there with Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram. And all you have to do is respond to one of these questions and tag them in your response. How have Asian Canadians contributed to Canadian society? How do you stay in touch with your heritage as an Asian Canadian? How has anti-Asian racism affected you? Again, the submission deadline is up until May 31st at midnight, and the winners will be announced on June the 2nd. So please participate on all the social platform, again, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And again, as per the rules, one submission per person. And if your account is locked, you can private or DM your message, and they will, and you will be able to participate in the contest. As for the awards, there are several prizes available. As you can see, Tim card and some gift cards for iTunes. And again, you could join, and also I forgot to mention WeChat as well as another platform that Chinese Workers Network use, and you could scan that code with your cell phone right now as well. And now we have some spoken word.
Thanks, Gobi. We're not seeing the video, folks.
My grandchild asks, and they will, where were you? A history book will unfold before my eyes, brittle spines snapping like a leather belt, some pages yet unwritten dripping with the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors who crossed an ocean seeking a dream that turned out to be more like a myth. Where were you? When CPR foremen sent trembling Chinamen with frail fingers into the tunnels with sticks of dynamite, where were you? When head tax and immigration acts shut the door to the motherland, splitting countless Asian families down the middle like steamed pork buns, where were you? When the boat people landed in the dead of winter, promptly pushed to the ghettos like the rest of the rabble. When Nikkei fishing boats were impounded, their nets deemed a threat to wartime security. 22,000 Japanese sent to the mountains to concentrate on all the ways they weren't Canadian enough. The first time my grandchild comes to me with puffy eyes, asking me where I was the first time I got called a chink, asking me why it still hurts this bad in the country that says it welcomes us all, I will be forced to contend with all the times I've kept my head down and pulled my bootstraps up. A history of silence that speaks louder than a Hiroshima bomb. We have never been a loud people, just hardworking. After all, chopsticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you, right? So study hard, Zai. Don't talk back. We are lucky to be here, to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. Railroads and laundromats to prosperity and graduation caps. They might not love us like they love our food, but they pay our mortgages while we pay our dues. When my grandchild asks, so what did you do? When they knelt on a black man's neck till he died. When they trespassed and attacked First Nations healing camps. When they called it Kung Flu and spit on our grandmas at bus stops. What did you do? And where were you? When black Canadians paved the way for our emancipation. When local natives pulled our broken bodies from collapsed railroad tunnels and nursed us back to health, bending cedar and weaving bamboo. Did you fight for them when they fought for you? I want to tell them. We tried. We stood. We fought. We could. No longer only doctors, lawyers, engineers, but artists, athletes, allies, activists. Every Chinatown and Little Manila in act of defiance. Every stoic action mistaken for silence. Here we are on the shoulders of humble giants. Their guidance meant survival so that we can now speak, so we can now strive, so we can now struggle, so we can now thrive. When they ask me what I did, I want to tell them, I tried.
Thank you very much. Jennifer's put the link on the chat, and this is a good time to remind ourselves that bringing culture into our struggles is always a really important part of what we do as a movement. And Mayworks, which is on this month of May, which was started many years ago to bring culture like that spoken word and the drawings into our expression of strength and how we want to struggle, is part of our heritage, and important that we combine these things together. So we are moving to, on March 21st, over 200 of us came out to our event for the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and to talk about how we actually dismantle systemic racism in workplaces, in our schools, and healthcare and society. And coming out of that, when people went into the workshops and talked about how to do this, we came up with a number of recommendations. And those recommendations are included now in the statement that was sent to you, called Making Good Trouble, Dismantling Systemic Racism. So that's the statement that's in front of you, and we're going to open it up to speakers. And if you can put your hand up to be recognized, then I will try and make sure we get people on the speakers list. I'm sorry. So you'll see the statement up there. Brandon Hayes from Library Workers. Brandon.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, so thank you for hosting this event on that Sunday. We were participating as the Library Workers in Toronto, QP 4948. And I should say my name, I guess, Brandon Haynes, president of QP 4948. We spoke to the issue related to getting organized and addressing systemic racism in the workplace. And just a little bit of a brief way that we've addressed that here and why we support this statement. We did a deputation, myself and Gobi Suryakumar, who you just saw, vice president of our local, and we spoke at the Toronto Public Library Board, which is our employer. and we talked about basically the fact that after the rise of systemic racism and anti-Black racism around the world, our CEO made a statement about that, but didn't address it as an internal problem that affects many of our members that come from marginalized communities. So Gobi and myself did a long presentation to the board. They usually give 5 minutes, but we convinced them to give us 20, or we demanded that they give us 20 minutes. And what came out of that deputation is that the library decided to create a manager for labor relations and equity, combining those two focuses. They've come up with an anti-Black racism plan that begins to address some of the issues that are involved internally and also within the communities that we serve. And they have a multi-year plan on addressing equity and inclusion and diversity. And so we think that it was the voices of the members that came forward in our union that talked about their experiences of racism and violence and harassment, not only in the workplace, but even from management and from supervisors that resulted in that action. And we have been very proud to donate to the Urban Alliance for Race Relations and to be involved in other groups that get involved in making spaces for people of marginalized backgrounds. And obviously, we're very heavily involved with the Labor Council, with the Equity Committee that Gobi is on, the Chinese Workers Network that Emma is on as well, one of our members. And we're proud to endorse this statement, and we think that this is absolutely the right way to move forward. So thank you very much for this document.
Thanks, Brendan. Next speaker is Nigel Barif.
Greetings, everyone. I am so grateful to be here just to endorse this statement also. My name is Nigel Barif. I'm a delegate here with the Elementary Teachers of Toronto, released officer with them, and also president of the Urban Alliance on Race Relations. We know how this is a moment of reckoning, I believe, a racial reckoning. Of course, we have all of the competing things that are happening, with our environment and just the police brutality right now. So, having labor reaffirm its commitment to social justice, which of course is just part of the base principles of who we've always are, and why this statement is so important for us to support. So I really do hope we can get unanimous support. And also, and just in finishing, my 5-year-old Joshua says he wants to play the video again. So he was really grateful for it. So whoever chose it, thank you so much. And so, John, we love you, by the way, Urban Alliance on Race Relations and all of our family here. We love you for all of the work that you've done for us. But anyway, I'll stop there with that privilege. One love, support.
Thank you, one love. Any other speakers on the statement? Abdi?
Thank you, Brother John and comrade, the work you always do to push the envelope of the social justice. It's a beautiful statement. It's a statement that needs action. It's a statement that we all have to come. By the way, my name is Abdi Haq Yusuf, CUPW. I'm also the Secretary of Toronto New York Labor Council. It's a statement to start a new thing, because the people, marginalized people, the people that are suffering, most of them are women, people who are the frontline workers, people who wakes every morning through the COVID pandemic, people who are struggling and dealing by serving the other Canadians to stay home and stop the spread. They work at the warehouses. They are the ones that serving. Most of them you will see working at the hospitals. So it's a statement that needs to encourage our neighbors, the people we know. It's a statement that has to be start all of us conversation to transfer this statement to an action, to help everybody to get a dignity life in Canada, everybody to get a life that they are similar or equal to the others that are Canadians. Because after all, we are all Canadians, and we need this to be transformed to action. We have many other statements that we shelve it. But sisters and brothers and comrades, let's come together. It's a good statement. It was a beautiful afternoon, Saturday afternoon, that we come up with this one. And let's improve and expand with this one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abdi. David Kidd, followed by Ainsworth. Spence?
David Kidd, QP79. Thank you, Labor Council, for this statement and for organizing that event. It was a pretty amazing day. It was a pretty incredible conversation in the small groups. And it's important that all of us stand up on these issues, particularly white workers, when oftentimes I know in some of the workplaces I've been in, communities been in, union sometimes, there's coded conversations between white workers around racism, and it needs to always be challenged. Of course, there's many white workers who stand up every day against racism. But I also want to just say, to remind every delegate, when the next provincial election happens, let us not forget that the Premier and his party failed the racialized communities in Toronto in terms of the not being able to stop the spread of COVID, and that's where it was most pronounced in terms of the ensuring that everyone got vaccinated, PPEs were distributed. The Brampton has almost gone through an epidemic of this, and it is on the hands of the Premier and the government of Ontario. And let us not, to fight racism in our province, let us not forget it at next election time. Thank you.
Thanks. Ainsworth Spence.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Ainsworth Spence, SEIU Healthcare. Dismantling racism in healthcare is going to take concerted efforts from all of us. It is a broken system that exploits and denies decent wages, benefits, safe working conditions, and full-time jobs for healthcare workers. It's a profit-driven system that continues to erode the quality of care for Ontario's seniors. A system that pays less than a livable wage for various roles within the long-term care sector, while privately owned for-profit long-term care homes have paid out millions to investors through Ontario's deadly first wave. And this is why we must get profit out of long-term care. Frontline workers and workers that are deemed essential are impacted the most, many of whom are in precarious circumstances, in financial straits, and struggle to make ends meet and put food on the table, and cannot afford to miss a single day of work. Folks, this is why the government must implement paid sick days for all. Workers should be able to take time off to recover if they're sick. Unfortunately, many of them has no other choice than to go into work sick. Sisters, brothers, comrades, discrimination comes in many forms, and denying hardworking, dedicated frontline workers that does important work by keeping the province moving, to deny them of paid sick days is discrimination. Thank you. I support this statement, obviously. John, back to you.
Thanks, Ainsworth. So there's 3 recommendations on the statement. We're just going to ask you to put up. Number 1, that we work with affiliates and community allies to integrate these recommendations that you see above into their strategic work. Secondly, we use every opportunity to engage with public institutions on all levels of government around an agenda of racial justice. And third, that we continue to urge affiliates to do the internal work outlined in the Yes It Matters campaign and utilize the Leader's Guide to Equity to make real change within their structures. And I know the majority of our unions have now endorsed the Charter of Inclusive Workplaces and Communities, and hopefully we're ready to use that as a discussion tool. The Leader's Guide is going to be important work for us later on. So we'll now put up to the vote for you to vote in favor or against that recommendation. Okay. Oh, I see Dave from IET. So you just put your hand up there. The voting is going on, but if you want to say a couple words, please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, what Ainsworth said that we should have legislated paid sick days. We had those until Doug Ford got elected and they got rid of them.
Yep.
So I think everyone here basically knows this, but maybe it's a good moment to remind ourselves it matters not just who you vote for, but did you actually go out and vote? Because we had them and then we lost them. A change in government is just how this happens. So I completely agree with the statement, but we've got to remember this. We've got to go out there and vote for those who will say we're entitled to them. Even Doug Ford hasn't come up with that when he said it was going to be the best in North America. Anyway, so that's just my comment.
Great. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on while we're waiting for that vote on to the next statement, and that is the statement called "Democracy is the Essence of Our Movement." Thank you. So that motion is passed. Hopefully you've had to take a chance to look at this this statement. It may be a surprise to many people on this line, but there are going to be attempts to bring resolutions to the CLC convention. In fact, they're on the books to limit representation at the CLC convention, that the credentials will only go to the head offices of your union. It would no longer go to local unions. And the delegates would not be elected by local unions. They would be selected in whatever process each international or national union determines. That is a really unfortunate thing that's in front of us at the CLC convention. And this came about as a result of the constitutional review that was undertaken a couple of years ago. And, you know, that review is mostly around the issues of rating. And a number of unions, some national, some international, have proposed the change to the Constitution as I've just outlined, that local unions no longer get credentials, that the credentials go to your head office, and that then the head office determine how those get distributed. I don't know if anybody else is going to speak on this, so I'll take a moment and just to give you a little bit of a background. Before I was ever elected as a rep in my home union, the Carpenters, in 1982, I was taken on staff by the Canadian Labour Congress to go across this province with 5 other building trades people to urge construction workers to stay in the Canadian Labour Congress. The International Union, Building Trades Union, has pulled us out of the CLC with no vote of our membership. And one of the key reasons they did so was because the CLC in 1974 had passed minimum standards of self-government. There was a lot of turmoil at the time. A lot of people wanted to go to Canadian unions. There was a different central body, in fact, that was involved in that. And when those minimum standards of government got put in place, some of those unions objected, and they tried the next 2 conventions to take control of delegates so they could determine who was going to be on the floor and the troublemakers wouldn't get to the floor. And they were unable to do that. And in 1980, they stopped paying dues. In 81, they left. It took 10 years to get the building trades back in, all of them. And there's never been an attempt since to try and take away the rights of local unions. And you'll see in the statement that we talk about, you know, one of the weaknesses that we see in our good friends, and I have many good friends, you know, south of the border, working up against really difficult circumstances, is their movement has not been informed as it's faced these crises over the years with the wisdom and the knowledge of people who are on the front lines, whether they're local union executive members, leaders, stewards, full-time staff. And for the Canadian labor movement, we have. And this is not about rank and fileism and putting something up on an altar about, you know, top union officials not paying attention. It's about ensuring that people like me and others are being challenged in the direction we're going, to know what people are seeing on the ground and how we have to be ambitious in our response. And I'm going to say this, that if we had that model, I don't think the sisters that were up on the convention floor in the early 70s demanding equality would have been on those floors. I know for sure that many of the workers of color who were delegates who brought about changes to the Fed and the CLC of representation of workers of color, those delegates wouldn't have been there. So we just got to think about what it means not to have the capacity of leaders on the ground to be helping to shape the direction of our labor movement and the campaigns our labor will undertake. So I see I've got a few speakers now. Judith Logan Junup, followed by Carolyn, followed by Chris Maynard. Judith.
Hi, I speak in favor of this motion. I think that we need to stand distinct and separate from the US. When we talk about international unions and pressure, I interpret that to be the power of some of the unions that are in the US. And I really feel that we do need to have boots on the ground, people who are speaking up for the people who are on the front lines and doing the work. And that message needs to go up so we can affect change and we can affect policy in this country. So thank you, John, for bringing this forward.
Thanks. Carolyn, followed by Chris.
Thanks very much, John. Well, I'm a proud member of an international union, United Steelworkers, and I am strongly in favor of this motion, and I think this is an absolutely critical moment for so many reasons in our labor movement. We heard earlier in the discussions today the strikes, the people who are running, and what they're putting forward. But honestly, in my years in the trade union movement, and I joined the steelworkers in the late 1980s, and moving from steward to local executive president of the area council, president of my local. And I will tell you, I've been to many conferences, and I agree with John that the very fact that a rank and file member can get elected from his, her, their union and take part in some of the policy discussions that take place at the Ontario Federation of Labor, at the Canadian Labour Congress, at our own union conventions, is critical to keeping that labor movement, our labor movement, in tune with the rank and file. And so I really do think this is about rank and fileism. It's about the people who are part and parcel of fighting the struggles on every level. They should be there to be able to voice their concerns, raise issues. And I will tell you, I think there's a whole range of issues when you go back, whether it be abortion rights, childcare, racism, LGBTQ rights, so many issues that have come forward that the leadership may not have been tuned to at a particular moment in time. And it's our role at the rank and file, at the base of our union, to bring these issues forward. And I think there is no doubt issues around racism, around gender equality, all of these questions would not have come to the fore in the way they did if we did not have people from local unions struggling, fighting, raising issues, and sometimes it was very hard to do so. Sometimes you had to go against the leadership of your own union, sometimes you didn't. But this is a part of the democracy of what's make our labor movement strong. And I think that this, really ill-advised perspective coming from unions, not all unions, but some unions, is a really problematic question. I know in my own union, there are probably, maybe 700, 800 delegates we could potentially have. In this new system, we'd be down to 200. It would not be chosen at the local level. This is a huge mistake. So many people have matured through this union movement, have played a role in this union movement, and see the camaraderie that they are bigger than their own local. There's a movement out there, and to deny them the right to go to a labor convention like the CLC, to be part of making policy that sometimes can actually make history, I think is a real step backward. So I would urge everyone to support this motion and do all they can to make sure that we maintain that level of democracy that exists today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Chris Nadon, followed by Bill Signal.
Hey, thanks, brother. I won't be long, but listen, I'm going to be blunt. I don't know who's smoking their Cheerios when they came up with this stupid idea, but it's about as dumb as I think. I'm a rank and file member. I work my ass off every day. I have a right to challenge my leadership. I have a right to ask questions because I pay dues, and I got into a little bit of trouble in my one labor college course recently, a couple months ago, because I was sweating my ass off in a film set, but I was also attending class on my break. And I asked the question came up in the CLC. What do you think you can what do you think we can do to change the movement for the better? And my answer to the mic drop was, I think we can stop electing power-hungry leadership that wants to quash the voice of people that actually pay their salary. So I think it's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If the idea here is to stop one affiliate from controlling the agenda, there's better ways to do it. So I think we should support that. But everyone has a right to go to these conventions and challenge the leadership, just like everyone here has a right to challenge John or challenge any member of the executive board here. I have a right to challenge my executive board. So I vote to support this 100% and tell the CLC to stop smoking their Cheerios. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm still trying to figure out what smoking Cheerios, how that works, but I'll go to Bill Signal next. He's a plumber and pipe fitter, so he may have an answer for that. Bill, you're on mute. Okay.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, I was there the last time that the Internationals challenged the working class of our local unions. It's time. The people with the dirty fingernails, they got the right to stand up and be counted and to go to conventions. This is not a big shirt and tie convention. This is for working people, the people that earn the money for the union leaders so they can have a job full-time. It's most important that the rank and file speaks their minds at these conventions. And in no way could I ever support this coming forward. This is how everyone in the labor movement came to be. They got elected from their floor in their unions. They got there to represent a few members as shop stewards. They moved up the ladder. In some places, they became the vice presidents or presidents of the local union, or in the building trades, it was the manager and business representatives. We all have to remember where we come from and that it's the working class that has put us there. And we have to defend the working class, not be anything else but the working class. And forget that you're not working class. I've reminded my international, I've reminded many members in the building trades, let's go, let's work together, but let the working members have their voice and say. Thanks very much, brothers and sisters.
Thanks, Bill. Seeing no other speakers, we'll put that to a vote. And while we're getting ready for the vote, we're going to move on then next to the resolution on Laurentian University. And are we able to put the video up while we're taking the vote? And for those of you who don't know, Laurentian University is up in Sudbury, and it is declared that it's going to on the edge of bankruptcy and has, for the first time in Canadian history, fired many staff, tenured professors, support staff, all kinds of people. Can we get the video up now?
The voting will block it if I put it up right now.
Okay. And Brother Terry Maley is going to be speaking to that, and then we're going to go to correspondence. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that vote. Okay, video.
Doug Ford and Ross Romano are letting Laurentian University collapse. This would devastate northern communities, undermine Ontario's future, and it won't stop there. Show Doug Ford's Conservatives we're ready to defend our public institutions. Demand funding to save Laurentian.
Okay, on the motion that's in front of us around Laurentian University, Terry Maley, you're going to speak?
Yeah, thanks, John, and good evening, sisters and brothers. My name is Terry Maley. I'm the Vice President of UFA, the York University Faculty Association, and I spent April 12th, the 150th Labor Council celebration, kind of in a heartbreaking evening, talking to my colleagues and coworkers at Laurentian, where 110 faculty, 40 staff, and some administrators were laid off and fired that day because Laurentian was engaged in a secretive process where they'd run into some financial difficulties. They tried to appeal to the provincial government and Minister Romano, the post-secondary ed minister, for financial assistance and proper funding, both short-term and long-term, for the university. And the Tories just sat by and did nothing. That meant that the university administration chose, they didn't have to do this, but they chose to use this CCAA process, the Canadian Companies Arrangements Act, the insolvency process. And that led to a very secretive, non-transparent process where they fired 110 faculty, 40 staff, and a bunch of administrators. And there's a huge problem with the use of that tool, that federal legislation for the university sector. It's never been used at a university before. And the colleagues had no notice. There was no warning that this was coming, as a lot of our private sector colleagues have experienced with this legislation in the past. But Laurentian serves underserved communities, Francophone, Indigenous communities. There's a midwifery program that's bilingual, the only one in Canada that was shut down. 69 different programs were shut down. And it's a horrendous abuse, a callous neglect of an important institution in Northern Ontario. And the workers have there at Laurentian have suffered for it. A third of the faculty were laid off, were fired on short notice. Some of them sold their houses. Some of them had to move. They were thrown out of work and told to go on EI 2 weeks later. So the minister has done nothing. I participated in a number of events and online events that have called for the firing of Minister Romano. in light of his callous neglect of the needs of the communities up at Laurentian and in Sudbury, the Sudbury area. And it's just a horrendous disregard for the public nature of the institution. So we really have to stand up wherever you can and pass motions like this at labor councils across the province as they're being done, to stand up and fight for public institutions that are not-for-profit corporations. And Minister Romano doesn't even know what that means, and he should be fired and sacked, along with the rest of the Ford government, of course, in that regard. But that's why this motion is important. And there have been motions from across the province, from faculty associations across the province and staff in that regard. And thanks for taking the time to listen to it. But it's a very bad situation that's developed at Laurentian, and we have to keep it in mind for I know there's a lot else going on politically in the province coming up in the next election, but if there's a little corner of your mind you can keep and recall this, just remember that Ross Romano from Sault Ste. Marie, he's from the riding in Sault Ste. Marie, has to go next time along with the Ford government. They have no regard for public institutions or post-secondary education as a public good. And the hopes and dreams of a lot of the community, I mean, at York, where I teach, just last couple of seconds here, 75 or 80% are actually working class new Canadians who are going to school, university for the first time. It's the same at Laurentian. And a lot of those families and those students, both young and old, both younger students and mature students, have had their hopes and dreams ripped out from under them by Romano. And so I speak strongly in favor of this motion and ask you just to pay attention when the election comes up, because I know that it's a long time away, and it's likely to get pushed off of the agenda or left off by other more important issues like COVID, of course. But if you can just keep an eye out for it when the election comes, we'll be making more noise. And as I say, try to get rid of Romano. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Terry. Judith, you put your hand
I
up?
speak too very strongly for this motion. I want to amplify the voices of the midwives who are in the training at Laurentian, who support Indigenous communities, Indigenous brothers and sisters, and having that training ripped out from underneath them, a very vital training that cannot be appreciated in the South. So I speak very strongly and also encourage you, what are you going to do? And for God's sakes, vote in June next year, and let's get rid of these people that are currently in power making these stupid decisions. But let's not forget the students and the women especially, who will suffer consequences as a result of this harsh decision making.
Great. Thanks, Judith. And so the recommendations include that we're going to go after the provincial government to immediately make funding available to stabilize the university and restore the program's jobs and collective agreements. And secondly, to call on the federal government to amend the language of the Insolvency Act and the CCAA to exclude public institutions such as universities. And I know a number of our activists and leaders on the line in the private sector have been up against CCAA and know what that's done to your collective agreements and the standards that you have and the jobs and the severance. And it's an outrage that this now is being used in the public sector. So we'll now go to the vote on that. And while we're doing that, then I'm going to ask Abby to get ready on the correspondence so we can put the vote up, the poll. Okay, Abdi, we got correspondence, I think one recommendation.
Yep, sisters and brothers, comrades, we only have one tonight, one correspondence. Request for the purchase of tickets for the Bromley Armstrong Gala Award. The Executive Board recommends a gold sponsorship at the cost of $2,000.
So thank you, Abdi. That's a strong sponsorship of the Bromley Armstrong event. The Labor Community Services, as you know, has been working with our equity committee to put on the Bromley Armstrong Awards. We weren't able to have an in-person event last year. There were no awards. This year it's going to be online. We hope that many of your unions will also sponsor and that individuals will come. And with that gold sponsorship of the Labor Council, that provides us tickets, which we are going to be giving to every one of our committee members to thank them for their volunteerism, the time they spend on our Women's Committee, our Equity Committee, our Municipal Committee, the Environment Committee, and the Education Committee. But really, sisters, brothers, friends, if you can make it on the 26th of May at the Bromley event, please come out. It's going to be a really important event. It honors the legacy of anti-racism work of our movement. And you're going to see some wonderful individuals and local unions being honored there. So we're putting the vote up, but I'm going to recognize Robbie Johal. Robbie?
Thank you, Brother John. I just wanted to second the motion. I really like it. I've been a part of it from before, and I learned a lot from it. And I think it's such a great platform for all of us to be recognized with. And thank you for all your hard work and everything you've done too, brother.
Okay, so that's going on to the vote. Then, now did we get the, yeah, there we are. And you see, I'm trying to move the agenda along so we get to the other special event a little, sooner than later. I think people want to make a nomination before midnight tonight, but we have a really, really important presentation to make to you now, and it's about our Labor 150. I hope many of you got to see the great video that was put together for our launch night on April the 12th. You can still go to labor150.ca and in order to watch the full-length video, we've shortened it down. There's a 20-minute version with just the great music and the narrative. But on the website, there's lots of great stuff, labor150.ca. Hope you've seen the ads on bus shelters. So the billboard ads up in York Region, or the inside buses, if you're in buses, they'll be on subway shortly. So Rochelle Hamea with the Labor Community Service is the person who's making this stuff work for real. And she's going to walk you through that, why I go and actually get something to drink, and I'll be right back. Rochelle, go ahead.
Okay, welcome everyone to labor150.ca. For those of you who have not yet explored the new anniversary site, it's full of labor stories, profiles, history, and I'd like to give everyone a quick overview of the different features as well as show you our newest activities page. So as you can see, this is our home page, and we have right here to our right the highlights section to check out on a regular basis. As we scroll down, you'll see our featured videos, as well as an inspirational quote from Dr. Bromley Lloyd Armstrong. And as we continue down, some featured stories that do get updated on a regular basis. Now I'd like to take you to the menu just by clicking on the top right-hand corner. And so you can see the main featured sections here. We have stories, who we are, resources, timeline, and activities. And I'd like to take you to the activities page, which is the newest one and the most exciting. And so what we have here is a section for quizzes, puzzles, and contests. Each week, the quizzes section is updated, so that's exciting. And what it does, it also takes you to a larger story within the website. For our puzzles page, just for example, we have a few puzzles to complete here, and what you'll be able to do, give me 1 second, it's just loading. What you'll be able to do is you'll have the option to unscramble the puzzle, solve the puzzle. You have the image here to preview what it should look like, as well as a way for you to modify whether if you want to complete it in 6 pieces or more than 1,000. And next, I'd like to take you into the contest. So once we get into the contest page, as John mentioned, we have Spot the Ad contest. So throughout May, we have the ads up on the bus shelters in the GTA, as well as the billboards in the York region. So when it's safe, take a photo, email it to 150@laborcouncil.ca, and draws will be happening throughout the month of May. Another one is to submit your labor stories, and there's no deadline to this one. And it will be featured during the delegates meetings, as well as winning entries will be highlighted and included into the website. And again, just enter it into 150@laborcouncil.ca. And last but not least, this one's where you could get really creative. We have a poetry, whether it be poetry or creating artwork or a song or producing a play. Please submit that in, and for a chance for it to be highlighted in Mayworks 2022. So if you have any questions, please let anyone on the team know. And we hope you enjoy exploring the website. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rochelle. And hopefully, please make sure that your local union has a link to that website on your own web page, that you send it out through your emails and your own newsletters that you're providing. All of the material is up on that site, labor150.ca. And if your union hasn't yet, if you've been a sponsor and you haven't yet provided us the story of your union, make sure we've got it so other people can learn about the rich history of the many, many different affiliates of this Labor Council over 150 years. I was reading a wonderful book, rereading a wonderful book by Marino Topan, who was an Italian immigrant here in the 1950s and ended up being part of the organizing in the early 1960s that Craig Heron writes about in his book, The Worker City, that's also downloadable from our site. You know, Marino talked about every week there was another young Italian immigrant was killed in a construction site. And the system just said, that's too bad, bring on other people to do the work. And when we're looking at, you know, the struggle now on precarious work and how we tackle the gig economy and the callousness of these global giants, the lessons that generation of immigrants figured out on how to organize, how to build power, how to win dignity and raise standards, those lessons are the things we have to continue to talk about day in and day out, because they will inform how we build our movement. I think we're at the next item on the agenda. I have poured myself a drink. I don't normally drink at work, but oh, Susan's coming to tell me something here. Oh no, we're gonna do the quiz. Okay, I poured myself a drink because we're doing the quiz.
Okay, so we communicate here in the old-fashioned way through doors. When it's not that we're trying to, like, you know, run out the clock or anything like that. The one of the highlights of the evenings will be coming up soon. But the importance of the quiz that we're doing at each month's delegates meeting is because it does show some of the richness of the history of our movement and the connections that we make with community and with others. So we've got 3 questions tonight. We'll put each one up for like about 30 seconds or so. Here's the first one. So for those on the phone, many people don't know that the Labor Council helped establish the United Way in Toronto. This year is a big anniversary for both of our organizations. How old is the United Way of Greater Toronto? 30 years old, 45, 65, or 80? We'll give about another 10 seconds. And of course, part of the point of this isn't just to find out, like, you know, what people know, but to help educate and provide a little bit more information. Okay, we'll close it off there. There we are. And so the folks who said 65 are right. It was established in 1966 with the foundational support of the Labor Council. Second question. The Labor Council's first woman president, Linda Torney, among many other things that she did, headed up what key campaign? The anti-free trade struggle against Brian Mulroney, the Metro Days of Action against the Harris Conservatives, Day of Protest against wage and price controls, or the struggle to get Medicare legislation in Ontario. Okay, we'll give about 5 more seconds for that. There we are. They were all really important struggles, but the one that Linda headed up was the Metro Days of Action against the Harris Conservatives in October of 1996 here in Toronto, where there was one of the largest crowds out on the streets that has ever taken place in the history of Toronto and York region. And then last but not least is our third question. Which of these quotes can be attributed to Bromley Armstrong? The employer doing my interview said, "We've never hired a black welder. I decided I was going to be the first black welder." It is our duty to uplift the human spirit and make our own individual contributions to the furtherance of humanity. I see before me a new generation of thinkers and a community of activists. If you become an agent of change, the rewards will be beyond measure, or all of the above. Do, 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 do. All right. And it was, in fact, all of the above. The last one, I see before me a new generation of thinkers, is actually included on the first page of our Labor 150 website. Thank you so much for joining us for the quiz tonight. And back over to you, John.
Thanks, Susan. So we've come to that point in the agenda where you see nomination for President of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. As you know, I've given notice of retirement. I've got the nice bracelet from Sunnybrook Hospital where I've been today to give blood to hopefully get another fabulous report of good health. But at some point, it's time to step back and let others take the lead in our movement. So we're now going to conduct the nomination. A delegate to be eligible for election to the office of president must be a member in good standing of an affiliated organization and must have attended 50% of the meetings of the Labour Council in the 12 months immediately preceding the date of the election. And a delegate to be eligible to stand as a candidate must, in addition to the requirements, be present at the meeting to accept nomination in person, or must have forwarded his or her acceptance in writing for the presentation at the nomination meeting. So I am now going to open up the floor for nominations for President of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council, and I'm waiting to see a hand go up. I see one. Guled Warsami from 75.
Thank you, Brother John, and congratulations on your retirement. You deserve that drink and many more to come. Brothers and sisters, my name is Guled Warsami. I'm the president of Unite Here Local 75. Tonight, I'm happy to nominate a dear friend, colleague, and sister of mine, Sister Andrea Babington. Since she first joined the labor movement in 1985, when she joined Unite Here, Andrea has been a staunch and tireless advocate and warrior for working people. In 1986, when she was only 19 and joined Unite Here, Andrea became a shop steward, and then shortly thereafter became a chief shop steward in her shop, making her among the youngest in our union has ever had. Never content to slow down, Andrea continued to organize and fight alongside her brothers and sisters throughout her life, forging a legacy not only of victories during these fights, but also a group of friends and advocates, of which I'm proud to be one of them. For more than a decade, Andrea has served on the Toronto and York Region Labour Council, and for the last 8 years, she served as the vice president. And her tenure speaks for itself. I don't need to tell anyone here about her record. All you need to know about Andrea and to reflect is at your last rally, the last action that you had, and the last march. Andrea was always, one that comes to mind. Never want to shy away from doing what is right. Andrea is one of the first who will show up to a picket line and one of the last one to leave the picket line. For these reasons, it's clear that there is no better person to lead us in the new decade and through the road to recovery that lies ahead of us. That's why, brothers and sisters, I am proud to nominate Sister Andrea Babington to be the next president of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Are there any other nominations? I'll say that again. Are there any other nominations? And for the third time, are there any other nominations? I don't see any other nominations. Sister Andrea Babington, you've been nominated for the president of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. Will you accept that nomination and stand for office?
Yes, I accept with thanks to my nominator.
Well, it seems that you are about to become the president-elect of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. Andrea, you'll be sworn in at the meeting in June the 3rd, and we'll have a transition. But I'll ask you maybe to say a couple of words to the delegates.
Woo, Andrea, let's go.
Oh boy, yes. I think I'm a little bit lost for word, and that's not normally me. I'm a talker, and this is my first time I think I'm lost for word, but I with timing and so forth, I just want to say thank you to Brother Guled for nominating me, and also definitely I have a team that was at my back. You know, when we talk about strength, they were my strength. If I ever falter and think this is not the way to go, they were there to support me, and I really want to thank all of them for doing that. My sister from COPE, I'm one of those, as Brother Guled talked about, that are lucky that I wear two hats as a member of Unite Here, Local 75 and COPE 343. I have, you know, those are my rock. And my, as I said, my sisters from Unite Here and my team that was out there. But I would also say more, it's a big journey, and as Brother Cartwright said that he's drinking right now. I'm not sure what is in his glass that he's drinking, if he's actually celebrating, running through the door. But I know it's a big job, and I'm also relying on all of you, and for people that's absent right now, the affiliates and that's absent right now, to know that I am ready to roll up my sleeve to do the work. I am not the genius that know everything, but definitely to take instruction also from you. This is a time when we are struggling through a pandemic. And prior to that, we were already in the Labor Council getting ourselves ready. As we said, it's about organizing, resisting, and taking the action. And I think more so we see this year where we're definitely going to need to do a lot of that through the pandemic, whether it's about getting ready to build up more political power, whether it's about getting ready to reach out into the community to look at how we recover from this pandemic. We're definitely going to need all of that. We already have fights on the ground that need action, whether it's about good jobs in our work, in the labor movement or in the community. There are strikes there. Right now, I am really worried, and I look at that and I know, I'm sure that you are in agreement that this Labor Council need to be stronger than ever to make sure that we are focusing on density within our union. We're gonna need a lot of that kind of power to survive what's happening right now, the solidarity from each other throughout the labor movement. And for sure, the paid sick days, healthcare sector that already on the ground pushing, we are gonna need that kind of a solidarity to make sure that we are together in this time of crisis to recover. And for sure, sisters and brother, you know, I'm saying to you right now that I am ready to do that, and hopefully that you are able to be side by side with me to make sure that we are recovering and we are stronger than ever in the labor movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. And I poured the drink because this is a toast. You know, Andrea, we've known each other for so many years. She is fierce and passionate about working people. And one of the people that I first heard the term labor warrior from Miguel Contreras, who was himself a hotel worker and became the head of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, the most influential and dynamic central labor body in the United States. And he talked about not just activists, not just leaders, but labor warriors. And that's who Andrea is. And her definition of being a warrior is not about her standing up in front. It's about showing working people how they can be empowered themselves, how they can feel and find their power, and how they can take that and confront people that are trying to keep them down, confront people who are making the wrong decisions, confront people who are not being accountable. I know that our full executive board and all of our staff are going to do everything possible to support Andrea in this transition, to make her a fabulous leader for this third decade of the 21st century in our labor movement. We're going to take a month to transition as we kind of walk through all the different files that this Labor Council has. But I know it's going to be a really strong process with Andrea stepping up to be the leader of this Labor Council, the largest one in this country. And she's right, our movement will be tested. We will be tested with some tough challenges in the next period of time. And that's why I hope that all of you, we have over 180 people here tonight because of this, but I hope every one of you will go back to unions and say, we've got to be there. When the call comes out from this Labor Council, while Andrea's on the phone, we've got to step up and be counted. I was mentored by a fellow who was an iron worker. He was in the Canadian Seamen's Union, a merchant mariner during the Second World War. And their union was proud, independent, was one of the first anti-racist unions in Canada that in its constitution explicitly spoke about against discrimination. And Joe Grabick, their union was smashed by the power of US mob actually that was brought up here and the Canadian government and the big corporate owners. And they got blacklisted. They ended up in the construction industry and in the Iron Workers Union. And Joe used to say to me, working people, there's so many challenges and we only have 3 things to keep us through this together: unity, unity, and unity. So my sisters, my brothers, my friends, please unite in behind Andrea Babington as president of this great Labor Council and make sure that when she calls you, return that call. And when she asks for something, you make sure she's got it so we can succeed together. Thank you very much. And Sister Andrea, here's to you. And now we're going to go on to reports. So first up is Heather from CLC, and then projects and committees and union reports.
Thank you so much, John. And just want to say a very warm congratulations to you, Andrea. I am so thrilled to have you in this position and can't wait to work further with you. John, on behalf of the Canadian Labour Congress, thank you sincerely for everything you've done for working people from coast to coast to coast. You've left a legacy, and it's been an honor to work with you as well. I think I speak for everyone on this call tonight in saying that. As far as the CLC report goes, we did just have a federal budget. So we saw some massive gains that the women's movement and labor movement have been fighting for many decades, one of which is the largest funding for the direction of a national universal childcare program. The argument is it enough? That's a question, but certainly the largest we've seen by a long shot to date. So well done to the women's movement and everyone who has been fighting tirelessly for that for many decades. We've also seen a $15 federal minimum wage, 15 in fairness, and labor councils, unions all across Canada have been fighting for that for many, many years as well. So that is a huge victory for the labor movement. Of course, things that we didn't see were pharmacare. So it was a huge song and dance that we saw from the Liberals with that. And we're going to continue to fight at the CLC level to see that with so many people needing it during the pandemic. I will put a link to our detailed analysis of the federal budget into the chat. Thank you so much to the Labour Council for voting in favor with Laurentian. Just to summarize that the CCAA, it's the first time being applied to a public institution. So it has huge implications for all of our public sector workers because you can break collective agreements with this type of a legislation. The CLC has stepped in at a federal level, and we have an ongoing campaign that just launched a couple days ago in regards to changing the CCAA to not be allowed to be applied for public institutions. So I'll put that link in the chat as well. And the CLC is also in ongoing discussions with ministers at the federal level in order to make those changes in the implementation of the federal budget. I want to do a shout out for the day of mourning. Thank you to all of you who are on the front line. It's been a very, very difficult year. And this Labour Council's Day of Mourning video really spoke to just how much all of you have been stepping up in order to fight like hell for the living and to mourn those that we've lost. We also, in celebrating the Asian Heritage Month, there is an effort that started all the way out in BC in Burnaby to have May 10th be a day of action against anti-Asian racism. The CLC to all of the Labour councils today sent out an email stating that we are trying to push for other cities to endorse this day of action. It's through the Stand with Asians Coalition. So I will put a link if anyone has any interest in being part of that. I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. And I also wanted to note that the CLC has a pilot program for addressing domestic violence that we just held last week. So if you're local or your union wants to host a domestic violence workshop, especially with domestic violence being on the rise, please reach out to me. I was part of the pilot, and it's an excellent course just to provide you with the tools for what we can do in order to help address domestic violence during these very challenging times. And I'll just wrap up by saying that the NDP of Canada convention happened a couple weeks ago, where we passed several wonderful progressive resolutions. And to say that there were technical issues would be an understatement of the year. But I also wanted to reach out to everyone that congratulated me. I've been elected to the federal executive as an 2S LGBTQ plus commission representative. So if you have people within that camp that could use supports, please reach out. I identify as pansexual, so if you don't know what that is, please Google it, and I'm here to help represent those people. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Laura from the Women's Committee.
Hi, Laura Thompson, Sioux Local 503, pronouns she, her, reporting in the Women's Committee. Before I give my report, I do want to extend congratulations to Andrea and thanks to John for all the work over the last years, and looking forward to our Labour Council continue to be strong. Yeah, so I think in terms of the biggest announcements, and folks may have seen it on the agenda, is that on Thursday, May 20th, the Women's Committee is hosting a Sisters of the Roundtable Self-Care Social. Really is a way to kind of have some, learn how we can continue taking care of ourselves as we continue to take care of others. And then also as a way to really just basically have fun. Because I think we can all use a bit of that sometimes. So it's going to be a mix of some discussion about what folks are doing for self-care, mindfulness, meditation, and then we are just going to go into some labor bingo. So for all sisters, women, non-binary and gender diverse folks, and union members are certainly encouraged and welcome to join us. We'll put the details up in the chat. You can RSVP through the Labour Council website, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Are there any other reports of committees? If not, we'll start going to reports of local unions.
Yes, let me chime in there, John. Ainsworth Spence, Equity Committee. It's a quick report back on our Indigenous Workers of Color Conference. It's a save the date. It's going to be on June 12th, starting at 10 a.m. And of course, the Bromley Armstrong Awards Gala, which John mentioned earlier. It's on May 26th. If you haven't gotten your tickets, please do so. And of course, we also have packages on sales also. Thank you, John.
Okay. Any other committees or reports of local unions? Jenny Irwin, followed by Robbie Johal. Yep.
Oh, thank you, John. And big congratulations, Andrea. I really appreciated on your campaign that I saw on Facebook that you talked about the need to fight back. And we definitely need to do that in this period because workers have sacrificed way too much for far too long. I have some good news, and then I have some call to actions on behalf of a sister local of Workers United. So some good news is, if you remember from last month, Workers United Local 154 that represents community agency or community workers from Wood Green Community Services. We were fighting to have the reinstatement of remote work options for frontline workers in our housing division. This united an entire department, but it was a really hard fought for battle of 3 months, 120 solidarity letters, the involvement of 2 MPPs. So big thanks to Rima and Peter Tabbins for their support. It mobilized our entire local to get behind this. It was quite inspiring and really enthused us. And I'm happy to report that on April 30th, we won our group grievance for all of the housing workers, for workers that were not included on the initial group grievance, and for new hires. So this was a wonderful victory. We have some folks in management that are not very happy, and you know, it's been a little bit of a rocky week in the implementation, but we are going to hold them accountable, and we are going to see this through. And this really does advance the health and safety, not only of the housing workers, but of our building operators, our maintenance, our cleaners, everyone involved. So it's a wonderful victory that I'm very proud to share. Now, the call to action. The call to action is Workers United Local 156 represents the women shelter workers at Nellie's. Nellie's was initially founded on anti-oppression principles, and I really respect the work that it does. And in my social work career, I have taken a lot of referrals for their clients to rehouse them in the various programs that I've worked for. We know that domestic violence shelters have never been needed more. The calls and the helplines since the pandemic began has more than doubled. I have endless stories about how difficult it is to even get women in really dire situations into these shelters. So these shelters need to be properly funded. What's happening here is Nellie's, due to issues of underfunding, which, is across the board and we need to fight back, has chosen to attack its workers. They are proposing vicious attacks, such as cutting their wages, cutting their sick time, cutting their bereavement time. How the heck do you do that when this pandemic is spiraling out of control? So we are doing a call to action. They had an info picket today. They're doing it on a regular basis. The struggle is going to heat up next week. We'll see if we're in a lockout situation that occurs. This local has reached out to the Labor Council and has not heard a response. So I'm going to ask John, Andrea, please respond to them. Please help mobilize members on the front lines. I'll get them to resend it if need be.
Yeah, Jenny, we're not aware of any message that's come to us on that. So please ask them to send it.
I will get them to resend it. And I will also put it in the chat here because we cannot allow these attacks to happen. And this is predominantly racialized workers as well. So we need to stand with them. We need to fight back. We need to change the course here because this cannot be the new standard. And they are a small local, but my God, they are mighty. So let's stand with them. And I will make sure that they reach back out to the Labor Council.
Great, thank you. Robbie from Postal Workers, followed by Shelley from 75.
Thank you, Brother John. First, I'd just like to, Robbie Joel from Cup W. I would like to congratulate Sister Andrea for her election and her nomination. Brother John, I know I've met you since I was very, very young, so congratulations again on your retirement, and I hope you have a good one. Just a quick update for my union. Cup W will be starting their negotiations in a few months coming, where we will be focusing on fighting for more benefits, but we're going to be focusing more on a greener post office. As you all know, that we plan to fight for climate change and deliver vital new services to every corner across this country. And this, everyone, I guess you guys all know, is called Delivering Community Power. We're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to the big fight that's going to happen. Thank you very much for all your support as well.
Great, thanks. Shelley, followed by David Kitt.
Thank you, brother. Good evening, sisters and brothers. My name is Shelley Sree, and I'm Secretary Treasurer of Unite Here Local 75. I want to start by congratulating Sister Andrea Babington. We're all so very proud of you at Local 75, and also to congratulate you, Brother John Cartwright, as you enter this next chapter of your life. As many of you know, throughout 2018, Unifor launched a very vicious raid against our local with former staff who stole our membership lists. At that time, Unifor claimed that they were raiding us because we were under trusteeship and by our American parent, International Union, ignoring the fact that it was in fact the supermajority of our local leadership, our executive board and trustees who had asked for trusteeship after the local was in turmoil due to violations of democracy and numerous allegations of anti-Black racism. So since 2019, however, we've been out of trusteeship. We have a new local leadership, and I'm disappointed to say that Unifor is still raiding us. And so far, they've been unsuccessful. We recently closed an open period at the Fairmont Royal York, which is our largest hotel with over 900 workers. And since before the open period, through the last hour of the open period, which closed at 5 p.m. on Friday, just last week. A number of Unifor staffers, they were aggressively making daily calls to all of our members at the Royal York, sometimes numerous calls in one day. They were house visiting our members, during the pandemic, pushing them to sign Unifor cards so that they could have a displacement vote to switch unions. And while we are so proud to say that we defeated their attempt, and Unifor failed to even get 40% of our members at the Royal York to sign, to sign up on cards, we're disappointed that their raids have not subsided. And in fact, Unifor is already preparing to raid us again at the Royal York, where we have another open period next year. And we have additional open periods throughout most of our properties later on this year. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we represent hospitality and food service workers, and our industry has been one of the most heavily impacted by this pandemic. And during these uncertain times, rather than organizing the unorganized, Unifor is asking our members who have just won extended recall rights and have had benefits throughout the entire pandemic for themselves as well as their dependents. They're asking them to give up their livelihoods and switch unions. And it's disappointing, and it's so disgraceful, because there's so much that the labor movement should be focused on in for workers' rights, and instead we're having to also defend ourselves against Unifor's continued relentless raids. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. That's so disappointing to hear that. David Kidd, followed by Doug Jones, and then Edward.
David Kidd, QP79 and Toronto Workers History Project. First off, John, thanks so much for your leadership, your practical practice of solidarity every day. And I know it's not retirement. We're going to be seeing you in the struggle down the road everywhere. So I know everybody thinks that's what it's going to be, but we know you're not going away. And Andrea, I'm so excited. Fantastic news. So on Thursday, May 13th, Toronto Workers History Project is doing a remembering of the 20th anniversary of the Quebec City Summit. Winnie Ing will be facilitating with speakers Kim Fry, Judy Rebick, Chris Ramsarut, and Michelle Robidoux. And it will be talking about that incredible mobilization struggle that took place 20 years ago. Later in May, we have changed the dates just because of some of our scheduling issues, but we will be doing a session on hotel workers rising. This will be a review of the 60th anniversary, Shelley, to take note on this, 60th anniversary of the Royal York Hotel strike in 1961. We have a young academic who did a lot of research on that, and a special treat is going to be a speech that Tommy Douglas gave to striking HERE members in 1961 will be played. We're hoping to have also ex-President Paul Clifford, but the other creme de la creme for that evening will be Andrea Babington, newly elected president of Labour Council of Toronto and York Region. She'll be speaking on the issues that Unite here is going through today. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you. Doug Jones, followed by Edward.
Congratulations, Sister Babington. I'm proud to see you get elected. Also, another note, John, I'm not quite sure you remember, way back, you phoned me up at Kipling Acres and asked if I could have certain family members be pictured on a yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
And they're famous, and they says, well, what's the big deal? And I says, well, I never been on the yearbook. And the oldest son says, hey, we did something that Doug Jones never did. How about that?
Yeah.
That's one thing right now. It's still in my memory. And one of the proud things, unfortunately, we moved on. But also, there's one thing everyone should remember, because I learned at a QP National Health and Safety Conference, because May 9th is the day that we had the West Ray mine disaster, and QP National, the QP people at Nova Scotia, the national reps, because the steelworkers were going to court over suing the employer. QP National in Nova Scotia joined up and told everybody at the convention, this is why you got to support the West Ray mine disasters, and had a bunch of hats and everything that the steelworks had sold out with QP National over at Dixon Road at the old Constellation Hotel.
Great. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Edward, followed by Kim Perry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Edward Wong. I'm from QP 3903. We represent contract faculty, graduate workers, and librarians at York University. Sad to announce that Rhonda Lenton, president of York University, has been reappointed behind closed doors. In fact, at a board of director meeting, the chair had all our members muted and booted out when we used our profile pics to express protests. For those unaware, Rhonda Lenton had allowed for the longest academic strike in Canadian history in 2018, and more recently undertook reprisals against Professor Avlanto for speaking out against racism on our campus. We're also in midst of bargaining, and we always welcome support from other locals, and I'll be sure to pass on any specific requests that might come up. But bargaining is not going too well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Edward. Final speaker, Kim Perry.
Thank you, and congratulations, Andrea, and to you, John. OSSTF Toronto, I'm the president of the Professional Student Services Personnel in the Toronto District School Board. We represent the child and youth workers, social workers, psychologists within the school board, amongst another 15 other job classes of support staff. And just speaking tonight to let the group know that after 16 months of bargaining with the TDSB, tough rounds of bargaining, we have been able to ratify a contract on behalf of our membership. So we're kind of a good news item here. The board didn't want to take us seriously at first, but we held our ground and were able to move the needle on some what we would consider equity issues. And we're very happy to have done that for our membership. Also, just a quick heads up for folks as the group of people who deal with mental health and well-being of our children, just asking labor affiliates to keep in mind not just making sure that this government that is spoken waters when it comes to mental health and well-being is removed from office, but also that when we come out of the pandemic, that people are paying very particular attention to making sure services and supports are available, not just to young people, but to workers. Thank you, and all the best.
Okay, thanks, Kim. So we're going to wrap up the meeting now, and a couple things. One is please come back on June the 3rd when Andrea is sworn in and fully takes office as president. I'm sure she'll be running that meeting, so she'll have lots of things to bring to you. We talked about May 1st, which is the Day of International Workers' Solidarity, named after the 1886 Haymarket incident. And this labor movement has been very involved in international working class solidarity for decades and decades and decades. The Toronto Workers' History Project that David Kidd talked about had a presentation last month about the anti-apartheid work that we supported, the SACTU Solidarity Committee, that Brenda Wall, who is the former head of our Labor Education Center and Executive Assistant Labor Council, was one of the key leaders in. And we know that it was the work of the labor movement in solidarity with the working class of South Africa who helped make that difference. And Hugh Masekela has a great song that we're going to put on for you as we're leaving. We want to thank you all for being here tonight. Again, congratulations to Andrea. She's going to be an amazing leader. Please make sure that you're there building this Labor Council, building our movement, building a better country and a better world. Thanks very much, sisters and brothers, and enjoy the music.
Bring back Nelson Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. I want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa. Tomorrow, bring back Nelson Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. I want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa. Africa. When tomorrow, bring back Nelson Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. I want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa. Marcus Miller. Bring back Nelson Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. I want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa. Let me see the one tomorrow. Bring back Nelson Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. I want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa.
I guess we're all waiting for John to actually say something.
That was awesome.
That was, yeah, as you say, Brother Clifton, that was truly wonderful. You know, we're embarking on a new era in the Labor Council now with a new president. And the whole thing about the president is now she speaks for us. When the Labor Council speaks, Sister Babington says the words, and we'll be entirely on side with what she says. It's just marvelous and wonderful that we are united in this most fundamental of all things, our basic humanity, and just treat us fair and with respect. That's all we want. And if that's what the result is, I'm saying, well, what else could the result be? You know, we're now on the path to, I can think back, I'm somewhat an older guy. We never talked about these things, about racism and anti-racism and so many concepts that just were never discussed. And it's terrible that they were not. But it may be the time now, maybe it took the 21st century, because this goes back to the 19th and the 18th and the 16th and the 15th century, where the wrong things were said. And finally, we're getting to the point where, you know what? Enough of the nonsense. If we're not all human, then there's a real problem with anyone who thinks that kind of thing. That's a wrong idea. And just let's park it and let's go